the last 20 years. Thank you, Officer.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Audio good? Everybody can hear me okay? Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so my name is Michael Gray, and I represent the Actis Foundation. And as Dennis said, I spoke at the Ohio Narco meeting in September, and with Dick Meadows and Jeff Solik and Dennis were gracious enough to ask me to come back and speak to your group here this morning. And I'm going to spend a little time talking in two segments, actually. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the fentanyl crisis, specifically the fentanyl crisis, and some suggestions we have in our foundation, what can be done to help with this problem. And then we'll take a break, and I'll come back and I'll go through some of the technology that's available for determining fentanyl at the street, as well as all other illicit drugs, actually. So we'll break it into those two segments. So again, I represent the Actis Foundation. It's a foundation my wife and I founded early last year. Thanks again to task force commanders, to HIDA and to NARCO for having me back here to talk this morning. I think there's great information, and getting this word out to you folks, I think is really, really important. And we're trying to populate our message out because I think it's critical, and I think things are changing. We're going to talk all about that. A little bit of biographical note on myself. I have about 30 years experience in scientific instrumentation, various kinds of testing that include drug testing from the pharma industry primarily. Some of my background includes electron microscopy and surface science, elemental spectroscopy, mass spectrometry, vibrational spectroscopy, and even some atomic force spectroscopy, which is sort of pure research physics. My market specialties have been really mostly material science and physics pure research. In the early part of my career, I was supplying to all the national laboratories and universities around the United States. I spent a good part of my career in the semiconductor industry, mostly in yield management and defect analysis. And then I did spend a good few years in the pharma industry using my vibrational spectroscopy experience in mostly counterfeit drug detection and QA. And then since then, even things like large-scale animal feeds. I've been in feedlots with 25,000 cattle, testing the protein levels using near infrared of their foods, and consumer product testing for regulatory compliance. So those are some of the markets I've worked in. Personally, my wife is here with me. She's upstairs taking the video. Nancy is with me, and she's always with me in these talks. We live in Manhasset, New York, which is on Long Island, about 5 miles due east of LaGuardia Airport, on the North Shore of Long Island. That's where we've lived for about 20 years now. I'm married and the father of 2 children, devout Roman Catholic and of Irish descent, thanks to my parents from Limerick City and West Cork. So that's a little bit about me. So a little bit about the Actis Foundation. This beautiful young lady here is Amanda Beatrice Rose Gray. That's our daughter, Amanda. And we founded the Actis Foundation in her honor to bring some, in her memory and to God's glory. That's what we say. It's all in Amanda's memory and God's glory. That's why we do everything we do. And you'll see what our message is all about in a few moments. So, why did we found the Actis Foundation? Well, I'm going to tell a little story because I'm here in Columbus, Ohio, and I am a massive Buckeye fan, as is my son. We're wrestlers. We love the Buckeyes. We're big Buckeye people in our house. Tom Ryan, the coach of the Buckeye wrestling team, is a Long Island native and an old friend of the family. So we're crazy Buckeye fans. We were national champions a couple of years ago. So I'll tell you a little story just to tell you what happened with us and why we have the Actis Foundation. January 5th of last year, just a little over a year ago now, I was at Rutgers University, a local university to us, enjoying my season tickets to the Scarlet Knights wrestling team, who were wrestling in the Big Ten, so they compete with Ohio State. And Ohio State was in town for a dual meet at Rutgers. So we went over January 5th of last year on a Sunday afternoon. My wife and I were there, enjoying our season tickets to the Scarlet Knights and watching them wrestle, who were the Buckeyes. And on the mat that day were a couple of national champions, and Kyle Snyder, who's our Olympic gold medalist, 2-time world champion, wrestled that day, competed that day at Rutgers. They did a little event for him. We were having a good time. I was enjoying my life. We were sitting in the stands watching this from our beautiful, perfect seats. My son had been concussed the day before in a wrestling match. Everything checked out fine. He was good to go. He was captain of his wrestling team, about to finish his college career, chasing out an All-American title. My son was doing well. My daughter, who'd been suffering some significant mental illness for several years, was doing well. She was recovering well. We were having very hopeful conversations. Everything was great. My beautiful wife of 30 years sitting next to me, and we were about to move into that phase of our lives where we could enjoy a little relaxation. The kids were grown. So on January 5th of last year, at about in the afternoon, I sat in that Rutgers arena and I watched that wrestling match, and it was a barn burner, and life was perfect. 5 days later, 6:19 p.m. on January 11th, we got the call. No parent wants. We got invited to membership in a group that no parent wants to join. Our daughter had taken accidentally a lethal dose of fentanyl and was killed instantly, and she died on January 11th. That is Amanda, who you see here, Amanda Beatrice Rosegrace. She was 24 years of age. And we'll tell you a little bit about Amanda and why her story is unique and why we founded the Actis Foundation. So the most important thing on my biographical message is that I lost my daughter to fentanyl on January 11th of 2018. When we lost our daughter, we tried to figure out where do we go next. What do we do about this? How do we give this a meaning? What's the point of this? My daughter wasn't a drug addict. We didn't know anything about this stuff. We didn't understand. We knew what fentanyl was. We heard it. She'd use some opioid occasionally. She had mental illness. But we didn't know the real dangers. We didn't know what was really happening. We didn't know that in the world of drug dealing, in the world of drug use, in the world of drug addiction, in the world of drug death, there was this torpedo coming in as a positive energy to obliterate people who weren't going to die before it was called synthetic opioid or fentanyl. As we gathered our thoughts and tried to figure out what was the problem, we realized how completely preventable her death was. And we began a foundation to bring that message to people and talk about how preventable fentanyl death is. So we started, and I'll start to talk about this fentanyl drug of a miracle turned scourge. It's a miracle drug, but it's turned scourge. My message here will be that the paradigms are gone. Everything we understood about drugs changes because of this. And I'll give you some facts and figures that you'll find interesting, much of which you'll know. Mostly law enforcement here, you know a lot of this stuff. But I'll give you a perspective on it you might find interesting. We'll then turn to our legal solution that we're recommending. A solution to solve this problem for our culture and for our society. There are 3 steps to it. First, we got to make this stuff illegal. A lot of the synthetic opioid isn't even illegal. It gets on emergency scheduling by DEA, but it's not intrinsically illegal. Secondly, let's find it on the street. Let's give you guys the tools you need to find the stuff on the street, and then not wait around for a year of lab testing and whatever else happens that kill your cases. And then finally, let's give some reason not to sell this stuff. I'll talk a lot about the business side of this and how it's all upside, all upside, all upside. And we got to put some kind of downside to it. And then finally, a little bit about protecting the victims considered and forgotten. Because this synthetic opioid dynamic is so different, the victims that we're trying to help of the traditional variety in the drug addiction world are not being touched. There are new victims not being touched by that help. And we got to talk about helping in a different way. So let's start on the simple message I make at the beginning of every talk I give: fentanyl changes everything. Your paradigms are gone. Everything you thought you knew about drug addiction, drug abuse, drug dealing, drug interdiction, drug intervention, drug overdose, drug death, none of those models apply anymore. We lost going on 30,000 people last year with fentanyl involved in this situation, synthetic opioid involved in this situation. I'd argue that none of those deaths would have happened 5 years earlier. Because before 2013, there was almost no such thing as this. And it came in very suddenly in 2013. We're going to show you some very, very dramatic numbers. And fentanyl changes everything. Forget all the paradigms. We must think differently or we're going to lose this war. We're going to absolutely lose. So far, we haven't even begun fighting. We're defenseless as a culture. So who was Amanda? Who is Amanda? Amanda suffered from acute borderline personality disorder. This is a very, very difficult mental illness. It's highly resistant to treatment, and it has a very high suicide rate. It's a very, very, very sad diagnosis. So my daughter was diagnosed about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, with borderline personality disorder. She began self-medicating that disease because we have no care for our mentally ill in the United States. The only care that's out there, you pay the bill. I wrote a $50,000 check to put her into a mental hospital. No help, no insurance, no nothing. So with no resources to turn to and no help, she turned to her prescription drugs, benzodiazepines, and began abusing them to try to get some relief. In abusing her benzodiazepines, we had to put her into a facility because as responsible parents, you can't come off of those cold turkey, you'll die. You'll seize and die. So we put her into a facility to help to wean her off so she could get back on her prescription levels again. While she was there, what do you think they taught her at the rehab? They taught her, if you think benzodiazepine works for borderline, you should try opioid. As Amanda said, it turned off her brain. So on on occasion, every month or 2 months, when Amanda's symptoms would be too intense, she would turn to opioid and take it for a day, turn off her brain, go back to her prescription meds and her therapies the next day, and everything would be fine for 6 more weeks. Then she'd get out of control, and she'd take opioid. We kind of knew she was doing this, what can we do? But Amanda was not an addict. She was doing this once a month, once every 6 weeks. And since she's not an addict, she's one of the forgottens. But the forgottens are becoming a massive number of people. Somewhere in that 30,000, there's a huge proportion who are not drug addicts, who are kids who are fooled with this stuff. So one of the things I like to begin all the talks with is definitions and arbitrary distinctions. I do this a lot with parents and families, so it's kind of a fun fact thing that gets them engaged and gets them interested. Even when I do it here in law enforcement and people in the drug community, they don't know this in a lot of cases. What does heroin mean? Think about that. What does the word heroin mean? And I don't mean it's a bad drug, it's right on our side at all. I mean etymology here. What does the word mean? Where does it come from? Most people don't know. It's the brand name of Bayer's diacetylmorphine, extracted in 1874 and patented in 1897. It's a Bayer product. And it was patented under the name Heroish, which is German for hero. Why? Because it took care of your cough, took care of your pain, and it was non-addictive. So you can take all of it that you wanted and take care of your cough, take care of your pain, and work through it, be a hero. That's where the word comes from. It's slightly stronger than most medical morphine. It is not illegal everywhere. It's illegal everywhere in the United States. So we think of it as this very, very bad street drug, but in many places, heroin is still a legal drug. It's just an extra strength morphine. Diacetylmorphine is the chemical name. It has the same addictive effects as any other kind of opioid. So we see it as a bad drug. In fact, so much so that it's become synonymous with the Hollywood portrayal of this drug, right? So we think about heroin, we think about rubber bands, syringes, dirty alleys, greasy army jackets, scraggly hair, dirty people. That's not the case, and you all know that for sure. When I talk to parents, when I talk to students, they don't, but you all know that for sure. You know that snorting and smoking of these pure heroines, where now snorting and smoking are quite satisfying, where they weren't in 20% pure days, but today they are. These are democratizing factors. Snorting and smoking bring this to the masses. The needle was a big line of demarcation. It was a big preventative. With snorting and smoking, it looks just like you're snorting cocaine, which has been a socially acceptable drug for decades, right? Parents are quite surprised to hear about these different delivery methods. When I tell them, you can't believe how many people are amazed and say, wait a second, heroin's the stuff you shoot. No. Snort it, smoke it, drop pills. Just like every other drug. In fact, even after an emergency, I know a woman who found her son's dead body with a heroin overdose, and she was looking for track marks on his arms, wondering what happened. If he's a drug addict, where are the track marks? Things she heard on TV. The kid never shot up once. He snorted himself to death. So parents don't understand this. This is very important. This is how opioid is being democratized. That's how the problem is expanding, right? So, for purposes of non-regulated use, abuse, or addiction, all opioids, natural and synthetic, are the same and are used interchangeably. Right? This is the first principle we have to remember. People will say, well, I'm not a heroin addict. Do you take OxyContin? You take Vicodin pills? Of course you are. You're not a heroin addict. What you are is a mu-opioid receptor agonist addict. Same action, same addictive property. All opioids share this pharmacological categorical name called mu-opioid receptor agonist. If you take that pill, it floods your receptors with dopamine, which is a good feeling, and you want that good feeling again and again and again, and you get hooked on it. That's called addiction. So when you use a substance regularly to fill those receptors with dopamine, you are a heroin addict. Call it what you will. Call it by whatever delivery method you want. You are a heroin addict. Shoot it, snort it, smoke it, take pills, pop pills, it's all the same thing. Right? We've got to blow through these things and understand just how democratized this has gotten. Pill poppers will migrate to heroin out of necessity. All will use fentanyl if that's the only thing available. Why? Because a mu receptor opioid agonist is a mu receptor opioid agonist. And if I got an addiction to it, I'm going to take it. And I can say I'm not a heroin addict, I only pop pills. And when I don't have pills and I'm sick and I'm hurting and I want something and somebody says, here's a bag of something on the street, and I don't know whether it's heroin or fentanyl or crushed up pills or what it is, I'm going to take it. Because I don't want to be sick. Right? So here's the problem. Heroin's stronger than pills. Right? Fentanyl's stronger than heroin. So when pill poppers start taking fentanyl, death occurs in big numbers. And that's why we're seeing these soaring death rates, right? Fentanyl is ready to replace heroin when conditions allow. This is a really important point. There are some unintended consequences going to happen. Our desire to shut down pill mills in places like here in Ohio and West Virginia is a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Morally, legally, ethically, right thing to do. But everything has unintended consequences. When I take those 4.5 million pill addicts and I take away their pills, they're going to turn to the street. And when they turn to the street, what they're going to find is fentanyl, because fentanyl is ready to completely replace heroin when conditions allow. It's all going to depend upon the situation and business conditions. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Right? We're well on our way to this displacement now. It's almost here, folks. And once it happens, all opioid users will absolutely migrate to fentanyl if they're given no other choice. And you know what that means. You know the deadly numbers. You know the empirically deadly situation of fentanyl. I'm going to give you the rational reason why. And I'm going to show you why it is so deadly, as you already know. So what happened to Amanda? She used heroin about 12 times, as far as we can tell, over a 6-month period. We're not even sure if she was faking it a couple of times. That's a maximum of 12. She has a friend who argues the first time she took it was the last time she took it. We don't know. It's a handful of times anyway. Never took it for more than 2 days in a row. She was not addicted to anything, and she took a fatal dose of straight fentanyl on January 11th of 18. This was a homicide. There's no question. The DA agrees with us. The prosecutor agrees with us. My daughter's case was an intentional homicide. I'm going to talk about why in just a couple of minutes. So you hear me say a lot about the democratizing, the expansion, where this thing is going, how it's expanding, and how the death rates are expanding because of fentanyl. Because of the takeover of fentanyl. Let me spend a couple of minutes walking through some data with you. This is a very, very interesting discussion. So what you're looking at here is a graph produced by the University of Pittsburgh, Donald Burke, in 2015, and it was all death rates from 1979 to 2014 of overdose deaths in America. I guess the University of Pittsburgh is famous for this database of death that they have. Every death in America has been recorded. He went back and he found that the data for drug overdose was a little bit unreliable before 79. So he went back to 79 and he did the data to 2014. So here he had, 35 years worth of data. And he saw this slope here. Now, Dr. Burke here is a public policy health professor. He's a professional statistician of sorts. And he sees a line like that and he just can't help his instinct that says, wow, that's statistically compelling. So he looks at that and he says, if I linearize this, if I put a logarithmic smoothing to this thing, look at this linearity. Statistically, we would call that a 0.97 linearity. So Dr. Burke says, as a statistician, if I've got 35 years worth of a massive database and it works out to a 0.97% linearity, I can absolutely predict what's going to happen in the future. No question. All I got to do is go like that. Okay, so that's what he did. And he took his linear smooth line and he just extended it out to 2025. And he goes, that's how many people are going to die of drug overdose. Now, he doesn't care about any of the conditions. He doesn't care about the dynamics, the individual situations. It doesn't matter. If he's got that much data, the data overwhelms all individual conditions. And that's true. That's true until the paradigm changes. We had a functional paradigm that didn't change very, very significantly until 2013. In 2013, it started to change. And at the time I saw Dr. Burke do this talk in 2015, the world was changing under his feet, but he didn't see the data yet. So he made this rather bold statement, and he said, is this what's going to happen? He says, I predict that's what's going to happen. He says, I'll give you 2 to 1 odds. I'll give you 3 to 1 odds. But he was wrong. Why? Because again, when you take this linearity and he back calculates it then into his curve to get some real numbers. And he gets a number that says 93,000 deaths in 2025. 93,000 deaths. We're at 72 today. And there was a Boston Globe article in 2017 where he was the most dire of 12 different public policy professors asked at 93. Most said less than 93. Reality is, it's a whole lot worse than 93. Here's what's really going to happen, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. So this is what really did happen, okay, to 2017. Well, this is what he said. 2 to 1 odds, 3 to 1 odds. All kinds of professors, more conservative than him. And look what really happened. Why? Because the paradigm changed. And when a paradigm changes, your statistical numbers don't mean anything. Right? Because the whole situation starts over again. Okay. Okay, so here's what he thought, and here's what happened. So what caused that problem? Here's what caused it right here. The most important single statistic that I've seen yet in this opioid crisis is this statistic from the Centers for Disease Control right here. What it's showing us is from 2000 to 2017, death rates by the individual components of the opioid crisis. So you've got here methadone, it's always around, right? You've got your natural semi-synthetics and pills. These are a very, very predictable linear sort of death rate. And then over here you got your heroin, and you'll see the heroin kick in here at 2010, and that would be, if you go by the story in Sam Quinones' Dreamland, that's probably about the point when black tar came in and there was another paradigm change in how drugs were distributed. So that's probably what accounts for that, but it's still a more gentle slope, and one could argue that may plateau out. And you remember this little bump here in fentanyl, and then it kind of went away again, right? The 06, most people in law enforcement remember that. But look how stable it was from 2000 all the way to 2013. And then boom, boom. What happened here? What happened? Well, I think I know what happened. I'll take a guess because I was in the farming industry in those days. I don't think anybody really knows for sure what happened, but I'll conjecture what happened here was this is about the time that the farming industry was losing control of its subcontract manufacturing and began pulling in contracts from their offshore subcontract manufacturers. So a ton of Chinese companies lost business in this period for American pharmaceutical companies. They had all these scientists laying around, big factories, big pharma resources laying around, so they turned to fentanyl to supply it to the street level. And I believe that's what I believe happened, why we saw this sudden surge of the stuff hitting the streets in 2013, and then this disastrous situation that occurred here. Why is all this so important? It's so important because what's happening here, for a completely different reason, fentanyl is taking over. And if this is the death rate of fentanyl, there are three things that are going to come out of this chart. One, fentanyl has this death rate, and it will continue to go like that for reasons that I'll explain in a minute. Two, fentanyl is taking over the market, so these nice linear, predictable curves are going to get ramped into its curve as these heroin users and these pill poppers start coming onto fentanyl. When you make those kind of corrections, you start to see bigger numbers. Remember the real numbers I told you? Went back and it was raw numbers and plotted out to 2025. And this is his 93,000 at 2025. And again, of 12 scientists interviewed by the Boston Globe, he had the most dire prediction of the lot. They were somewhere between 72 and 93 for the rest of them. When I just take a very conservative guy, very, very conservative, I just take the slope that we have today, and I apply it going forward, I get 106,000 in 2025. I beat his 90,000 a full 2 years before he gets there, right? 106,000, and that's still the most conservative way you can do it. There is no question it's going to be worse than that. No question it's going to be worse than that. Okay, why? Because when you start peeling away, we know that pills are going to start being pulled back. The unintended consequences I talk about. People are going to turn to the street, and when they turn to the street, they're going to find fentanyl. Okay? We know this is going to happen. So we know this fentanyl is going to start taking over the other curves. So you're going to start peeling away these other curves. Peeling them away and peeling them away. And everybody's going to get onto the curve of fentanyl. Now, what I did then is I put that back into bar graphs that CDC that publishes. And I put my numbers into those bar graphs, and I see something like 49,000 opioid deaths this year, getting to 70,000 by 2020. Now, I'm going to give you a number on the next slide here that is not a real number, but it's a number for perspective. If I take from today forward all of the death rate of fentanyl, and I get rid of heroin, and I get rid of methadone, and I get rid of semi-synthetic pills, and I put it all in under the curve of fentanyl, I get 315,000 by 2025. Now again, disclaimer, I'm not claiming that's the real number. I'm just giving you perspective. Fentanyl is taking over. It absolutely is. It's going to take over more and more. If it were to take over completely today, by 2025 we'd see 315,000 people dead. So the real number is somewhere between 106,000 and 315,000. That's a pretty bad number considering how panicked we are at 72 today. So fentanyl is, why is all this happening with fentanyl? Why is fentanyl so popular? Well, it's a lot easier to make than other opioids, right? It's a lot easier to ship and smuggle than other opioids, right? It's significantly more profitable than other opioids. Why? Because it's so much more potent. This figure of the three glasses, can't see, I've listened to those slides, you see better. Little pile of powder for heroin, little few grains for fentanyl, little couple grains for carfentanil. These are analgesic doses, okay? It's far more potent, as you can see here, right? Here's the problem, because it's so potent, it's very hard to mix. Dealers are not blending engineers. I'll tell you in just a second what a blending engineer is. And this leads to our problem that this is the deadliest opioid available. And it will not change. It will not change. It will remain as deadly as it is today. You know it's deadly by the numbers and the facts and figures you deal with on the street. I'm going to tell you why. Here it is. Its super strength makes it impossible to control the dosages at the street level. I put these up here because this is some fancy Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy that we use in the pharma industry to develop patterns of blending and quality of blending. Here's the big fancy equipment that integrates these spectrometers. Okay, you see the person in the clean room suit, the bunny suit, and all this stuff. Okay, these people struggle to control dosage of grains as small as fentanyl and as difficult to blend as fentanyl. Blending powders homogeneously is really hard science. Very difficult science. In fact, the pharma industry employs blending engineers. These are PhD scientists whose job is to do dry powder blending. What do we mean by dry powder blending? Dry powder blending may be the most widely recognized unit operation of pharmaceutical manufacturing, but the least understood. It's the hardest thing they do. Why? You think when you mix powder, I make a cake, I throw some sugar, I throw some flour, and I mix it all up and it does fine. Yeah, but then you put some eggs in or some milk, and you create a chemical reaction, right? Then you mix it all up and you put it in the oven and you put heat to it, you create more chemical reaction. Dry powder blending is not a chemical reaction. You're taking two powders and you're mixing them, and all you're doing is taking a grain that size and taking a grain that size and trying to get one of these to every one of these, or one of these to every 10 of these, or one of these to every 100 of these, statistically. Think of how difficult that is. With powder grains that are too small for the human eye, need microscopes. I'm going to take 100 grains of this powder and put it into 10,000 grains of this powder, and it's going to be exactly 1 per every 100. This is really tough science. You've got ionic forces pushing and pulling, attracting, static. You've got all kinds of problems. The pharma industry said in 2005, this is the hardest thing they do. What do you think this dealer with this bullet blender is doing? He's doing a terrible job. An absolutely terrible job. He can't handle this. This difficulty is why fentanyl is the deadliest opioid available. It's a 2 micron part. If you compare that to other things pharma does, this would be one of the more challenging dry powder blending operations in pharma. You got some drug dealer trying to do it. Here's what it looks like graphically. Over here I got something the pharma industry calls excipient. You guys call cutting agent. This is my API, active pharmaceutical ingredient. You guys call the drug. Okay, and this is the street drug that I'm going to send. I'm going to sell, okay? So I got these grains here, and I got these grains here, and I got these mixed here. And this is what happens. Pharma industry can't do this. They would be guilty. They'd be sued out of existence if they put out a mix like this. Puts a drug dealer, what the heck? You know, right? So takes this and he mixes it up best he can. He does a pretty good job. You know, it's pretty good. And these guys are pretty good at what he does. So then he starts scooping them up and putting them into bags of pills, right? So he goes like this, and he bags a bunch of this stuff coming from here and here and here and here. And his customers don't like it. They never got a buzz. They're pretty angry at him. All they got was a bunch of baby form, right? A bunch of lactose. Well, then he's got this guy. Ooh, look at that little red dot. So around here, these kind of bags, they got about this mix. That one much better when you get rid of your headaches. Okay, then finally somebody gets a little bit of a buzz. You get a little further into the center. Okay, you know, this isn't bad stuff. Wish I had more. And then you got the guy gets right in the sweet spot, right around the edges of this red cluster. Nice, that's good stuff. It's a good buzz, yeah. And then everybody else dies. Oh well. Oh well. So 10% of my customers get killed because they got from the center of the pile. Oops. Oh well. This is why it's so deadly. Okay, so I'm going to take you through 2 slides of a master's class at a business school. We're all getting our MBA, and we're going to talk about business case study. All right? When we get our MBAs, we talk business case study, and we look at how you make shoes so you can make better sausage, you gotta make sausage, you make better cars. We look at the business commonality. Okay, so let's take a look at something that happened a few years ago. Everybody remembers these two things? Tube TVs and flat panel displays? Right? My son, literally this weekend, we went to a friend's house who was moving a tube TV out of an older person's house. My son said, wow, I'm probably about the youngest, about the last age that would actually remember what that thing is. So a tube TV, right? Big, heavy, terrible things. These things are great, right? Everybody here, I can tell you when 85, 90% of you bought your first flat panel TV. 2007, Christmas. Why? Because I was tracking it. I was in the semiconductor industry. And this was really important data. We were tracking this stuff. We're tracking the takeover of the flat panel display of the tube industry. Why? Because this was a big, big shift in the industry. They were completely unrelated industries. This industry was going away, and this industry was going to boom. And we were just waiting to see the dynamic when it was going to happen. So we were watching it very carefully. Right? And it happened in 2007. Look at that. This is the curve. Here's your CRT losing its sales and the flat panel display gaining sales. So I said 85% of you bought your TV in 2007. Why? Because it was cheap. And it was better in every way. Back here, it was better in every way, but it was $50,000 for a 40-inch TV. So a few rich people bought it. This is when all the masses could afford it because it was actually price parity, we call it, in business, with the tube TV. So everybody bought it, right? What's interesting to note in this slide is how quickly the CRT just went away. Why? Why did it happen so suddenly? I mean, this starts in 2002. By the way, these things existed back here in 95. And Silicon Valley, we were making the first ones in 1995, the first emitters for flat panel displays all the way back here. Okay? So what happened? Here's why. In 2007, America saw the flat panel display start taking over the tube TV, right? Why? It looked sudden to all of you. It wasn't sudden to me. I was watching it for those 15 years, as I said, right? So here it is. I said this is a case study because we're going to talk about how it affects another industry. And why? So if I want to do that, let me give you the title of my case study. And the title of my case study is this. It's the study of a legacy supply stream and its ability to hold on in the face of a vastly superior product. That's our case study for today's business class. Okay, the legacy supply stream and its ability to hang on in the face of a superior product. What do I mean? Tube TV been around 50 or 60 years. Made billions of them, okay? They knew how to make them, okay? In comes this flat panel display. It's better in every way. The consumer wants this thing. And it's a technology play, which means that the more I can make, the price plummets. And I hit this crossover, and the price keeps going down. It's all very volume sensitive. This guy isn't very volume sensitive. It's been around for 60 years. All the costs are worked out. No matter how many orders you give me, it doesn't go down in cost. You give me all the orders here, the price goes down. Right? So that's what I mean about a legacy supply stream. And how does it hold on in the face of this far superior product called a flat panel display? Because this, by the way, this tube TV, these are companies owned by business people. They're not just going to go away. They don't just call it quits and run away. They fight. They fight for their business, right? The displacement occurred because the flat panel display is a vastly superior product. It's not even comparable. You've owned both, you know. Big old hunk of junk, big glass thing, weighs a ton, has a crummy looking picture, takes a whole bunch of power, gets really hot, right? Flat panel display is a beautiful product. It took 15 years because the tube had been around for 50 years. And the supply stream was there, so what did they do? They saw the flat panel come and they took it on the chin for margin. They knew they couldn't lower costs, so they lowered price. They just got lower margin, till one day they couldn't do it anymore, and boom, 2007, parity comes, CRT disappears off the face of the earth. So here you go. The tube is a non-technology product. It's very difficult to make. As the display gets bigger, the glass has to get thicker, the glass stops being pure, it has to be perfect. It gets more expensive and more expensive as you want to improve the product. The flat panel display is a semiconductor process, highly responsive to economies of scale. So this inexorable process ensues, the flat panel takes over, the CRT goes away. So, you talk about shoes, how to make better sausage make better cars. Let's talk about how you made CRTs and flat panels to make better drugs. Right? Natural drugs will always be tied to a plant, a farm, multiple manufacturing, extraction, distribution points. Work, work, work. Farms, poppy farms, that the military can see in Afghanistan and burn. That you guys can find little processing places all over and distribution points and stop them, right? Fentanyl is a synthetic process. Illegal versions can be made on all kinds of different chemical processes. Very simply. We have 35 recipes of how to make basic fentanyl, and we have 2,000 analogs that yet to go. So, in this market, poppy farmers like the tube guys, they'll hold on. Heroin's been around a long time. Costs are all worked out. Synthetic is there. Give me more volume, I'm going to give you a better price. Give me more volume, I'm going to give you a better price. Over here, give me more volume, I can give you better cost, so I'll give you a better price. I'll just take lower margin. Until the day when I can't anymore. And then this industry hits the 2007 moment that the flat panel display industry hit, and heroin disappears. Right? Natural opioid just disappears. Why? Because it's better. It's better in every way. There's only one small downside, and it's irrelevant to them, right? So, fentanyl is easier to make and smuggle, it's easier to ship, it's significantly more profitable, it's far more potent. There's just that one stinking little downside, it kills its customers. You used to get 8 years and tens of thousands of doses out of a customer before they died. Now you get 3 or 4. Maybe. Man had bought 12 or 13 in her life. And she was killed intentionally, as I said a moment ago. Why? She was a homicide. Why? Because the downside of fentanyl isn't actually a downside at all. In fact, it's just another upside. Right? The fact that it kills customers isn't a downside. Nothing promotes a street drug better than the death of a user, particularly a user like Amanda, who was a light user, non-addict, didn't have much resistance, didn't have any experience, didn't know it was fentanyl she was taking. Okay? You kill her and all the junkies say, oh, the newbie got killed. Great, that must be good stuff. They all go running. Amanda was killed as an advertisement. And if that, and you all know this is true. Okay, so I'm preaching to the choir on this one, but let me give you a case in point and how desperate this gets. My nephew is a counselor in New Jersey in a clinic, a methadone clinic. And in one of his groups one day, a woman came in and she was telling the group that she had just gotten out of the hospital where she was for 2 weeks because she had gotten arsenic poisoning. Somehow, she got arsenic in her heroin. I don't know how arsenic gets in heroin. It's a natural metal throughout, so who knows? She got arsenic in her heroin, and she got arsenic poisoning. She was 2 weeks in the hospital. My nephew comes out of the group, and he hears them whispering in the hall. They're asking her, what was it like? How sick did she get? Where's she got it? They're so desperate to get something out of this drug, they're willing to take arsenic. I mean, I don't know how many words on the planet have the intrinsic danger name like that word. Right? Same clinic. My sister is the head nurse there. My nephew, not her son, but another sister's son, works there. My sister, the nurse, was hanging up signs, putting the street name of a drug that killed a lot of people, saying, stay away from, Tony's blue stuff, or whatever. I don't know what they call the stuff. And she'd been doing that for some time. She's the head nurse and she's put in the clinic. Until a counselor came along and said, those are advertisements. You do realize that you put that sign up there, everybody's leaving here and going to Tony's blue dust. This is how desperate things become, right? So, in the warped world of drug dealing, death is just an advertisement, yet another benefit. So this is what the scale looks like today. If I'm a drug dealer, I got easier to make, easier to ship, higher profits, easier to move around, and I can make an advertisement of it anytime I want without having to use whack poison like I used to have to do. I can give them the real stuff and still make it an advertisement. My daughter had pure fentanyl. The day before she died, she had pure heroin, no fentanyl. That's what was in her bladder, her urine from the night before. That day, she got pure fentanyl, no heroin. Who sells a bag of pure heroin one day? 2 bags, pure heroin and pure fentanyl to the same user. Okay? It's advertising. Once those scales go, let me tell you the last part of my lesson. The last part of my lesson in flat panel displays and CRTs. Because I was in the semiconductor industry and I watched all this happen. Once the tube went away, the flat panel is made by a manufacturing process, semiconductor manufacturing process. It's intrinsic to high volumes and low costs. it exploded in manufacturing. Exploded, right? It went places the tube never could because the tube was heavy and expensive and hot and power consuming and hard to make. Flat panel wasn't any of those things, and now after 2007, when the volume's going its way, its costs were coming down. So the flat panel explodes. You remember this after 2007. Once you bought your first one, you bought your second one. I always go through in a room where it's a smaller room, I say, how many people had a tube TV in their house? And I look for your hands. How many people had two? And by the time I get to three, I have almost nobody. How many people have 15 flat panel displays in their life? I'm wearing one on my wrist. You've got your iPad, your phone, your kid's iPad, TV in every room, right? Video games. The average person is probably responsible for 15 of these things. Where the tube was two. That's at a minimum 7-8 times the market. All because of the difference in manufacturing. Same thing's going to happen here. We're going to see a glut in fentanyl on a scale you can't imagine. You're just going to produce this stuff and produce this stuff and produce this stuff. It's easy to make. It's easy to ship. It comes in 1/100th the volume of heroin without having to be on a farm. Right? So you're going to see this thing. As we shut down the pill mills, as I said earlier, the unintended consequences. As we shut down the pill mills, and we put these 4.5 million pill addicts with nothing out there, the drug dealers are going to see a massive market opportunity. When that market opportunity converges with the fentanyl glut, and all kinds of pills are counterfeited from fentanyl, the death toll is going to go Armageddon. Right? Because we'll vector this problem to a whole new segment of opioid users, and if you go back to my slopes on my chart, the ones with the most predictable and linear death rate. You're going to take those away, and you're going to put them right into fentanyl in the worst death rate. So how do we tip the scales back? I've got 3 pillars I'm going to suggest. First, let's try making it illegal. Okay. We had the STOP Act got passed, H.R. 6 last year. Got passed and signed by the President, 115th Congress. We almost got there. We almost made it. The most important provision, the one that would take care of fentanyl, got pulled at the last minute. Why? Because the Stop Importation and Trafficking of Synthetic Analogs, SITSA, Senate 1327, H.R. 2851, 1327, I think in the Senate. So it got passed in the House resoundingly, went from the House to the Senate. It was all ready to pass literally 2 nights before the vote. Crawford Washington Post writes an article, says this is the war on drugs. War on drugs, uh-oh. That's like light to cockroaches when you put it in Washington, right? They all run. First Feinstein ran, then Booker told me to my face he would support it. He's out. And then Grassley's out. Oh, that's it. Both sides are gone. It's all over. So we don't get the one thing that matters. 1327, right? This is because of the analogs. And I'll talk a minute about analogs. You got 1,400 analogs out there of fentanyl. Some say as many as 3,000. About 500 that will have the same analgesic properties. So at minimum 500. So fentanyl's illegal. You can't say fentanyl's illegal. It's got to have a CAS number, a molecular structure. It's got to have a chemical name. DEA can't just say fentanyl. They can't just say that stuff, white powder. They got to give it all these details, right? You guys know all about this. So you put that on fentanyl, and then they come up with carfentanil. Oh, that's not illegal. Remifentanil, oh, that's not. Omfentanil, oh, that's not. Acetylfentanil, oh, carfentanil. Fentanyl, 500 times. Now they can emergency schedule this stuff, it's an analog, right? But it doesn't get on the permanent DEA ban. This is what STOP Act would have allowed. It would have allowed analogs to be automatically on DEA schedule. I can't imagine the harm in this. Pharma hated it because it hurts the research. They were given a carve-out. Pharma is exempt. Great. It's the only problem, right? Until this woman writes, blah, 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 obscure provision, blah, 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 war on drugs. It doesn't matter what the article said. Those 2 phrases, everybody ran. So we lost it. Okay, so we still have the analog problem. You got 700 years worth of whack-a-mole. 1,400 analogs takes at least 6 months to get them on the emergency schedule. 700 years of whack-a-mole. Fentanyl isn't the only problem. All drugs will have synthetics. Why? The pharma industry loves synthetics. Why? Because they find some tree bark in the Amazon that helps with your foot fungus. Who wants to keep felling trees in the Amazon? Let's work on finding a synthetic version of that, right? And once we find a synthetic version, we can all what we want. We don't have to worry about these trees in the Amazon anymore. And then once we have a synthetic version, we can start doing synthetic chemistry on it, and we can start making analogs of it. One that works a little faster, one that works a little slower, one that gets rid of the side effect, right? It's great having these synthetics in the real business. Well, drug dealers love it too. Second pillar, product testing by law enforcement. DAs are putting moratorium on testing in the field, right? It's dangerous stuff. You guys are worried about it. When I do this, I do a lot of times a talk with a company called Fed Resources that does a lot of training for law enforcement and security forces and these things. And people are really panicked, and they have to go through a whole segment to say, this fentanyl stuff isn't as bad as you've heard, right? You're not going to die because one grain of it got on your finger, right? But there are moratorium on testing because it is very dangerous. You know, if you get somebody who's overdosed and they snort it, it's all over their chest, and you start doing chest compressions, you're going to breathe enough of it to at least get high and maybe get hurt. So we need a test that doesn't expose the first responders. We have Raman, even this new Raman called 1064 wavelength, Fourier transform infrared. These are very good for bulk heroin and fentanyl. They detect fentanyl quite well, right? But they can't detect at the street cut levels. This is the biggest problem. So we have something called a high-pressure mass spec. It's a portable type of thing that was just invented last year. I'm going to talk about that in the next segment and go through a technology review of what's out there. But getting these tools out to the field requires the passage of something called POWER Act, which is funding for state and local. The feds took care of themselves last year on something called Interdict Act, which gave them money to buy this type of field test equipment. They put up a bill so that you guys, state and local, could have it too, and then of course they didn't pass it. But that's still out there and hopefully going to get passed in this Congress. And then we got to get the word out that this type of product is available. That's one of the reasons I'm here today. To kind of give this perspective on fentanyl and to give you an idea of what's out there that you guys can use in your world to help. So, third pillar, and this is a really important one, fentanyl-specific legislation. Right? Oops, congressmen hear this and they say, oh no, that's mandatory minimum war on drugs, oh that's bad. But fentanyl is a scourge unknown in history. We've never faced anything like this before. We have to make fentanyl somehow radioactive at the street level. You saw my scale. Can we put some small little bean on this side? Something? Something. Because if we don't, and we get to the 2007 moment, we're doomed. And we'll never put the genie back in the bottle. Can we do something to try to push that off a little bit? It's a historically dangerous situation. It requires extreme solutions. This is very much an uphill battle, right? Public officials don't want to hear about demand-side solutions at all, or supply-side solutions at all. It's all about demand-side, right? And that's good. Demand-side is good, but my daughter wouldn't be touched by any of those demand-side type actions. Fentanyl-specific legislation is needed. A dealer can stay within simple possession in most places while having enough to kill 10,000 people. This is crazy. This was always a problem with heroin because of the differential weights and how laws are generally written, but it's 100 times worse. It starts at 100 times worse with fentanyl, right? It's not like heroin and cocaine where, you know, kingpins had this distribution level. Everybody's got distribution level because anyone in the dark web can order this stuff and get it in their mailbox. As I say, fentanyl changes everything. The legacy drug policies are not relevant. Fentanyl is a legitimate security threat to our country. It's much worse than any other kind of recreational drug. I talked about these 2 arrests in New Jersey and Nebraska last year, which among the 4 guys, they had enough drugs to kill 45 million people. I can't even find out what happened with Nelson and Felipe because nobody reports it. I don't know if they've been tried yet or what. Those are the guys in Nebraska. Daniel and Jesus in New Jersey got 10 years and 6 years respectively. Jesus is 26 years old. He got 6 years. He had enough drugs to kill 18 million people. And he got 6 years at the age of 29. You guys know the law better than me. What is he out at 26? He's out at 28 or something? 18 million people. What if they get hit by a truck on a semi on the New Jersey Turnpike? You have Chernobyl on the New Jersey Turnpike. So let's give the guy a 6-year sentence. I put this chart up here just to show. I live in New York and I work a lot in Massachusetts. And just to show in how many categories you can spend almost no prison time and have tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of lethal doses because of the way this fentanyl works. This is madness. What are we doing? Fentanyl dwarfs many other evils. Those 2 kooks, those 4 crazy people had 45 million deaths in the trunks of 2 cars. Okay? What does that equate to? We'd have to go to war with this knucklehead for 12 years, including according to DOD statistics, to kill 45 million people. 12 years of war with this guy, who's got nukes. What does 45 million mean? Well, Daniel and Jesus had enough to kill 100,000 times all the kids killed in a school shooting in the history of the United States. Take all the kids of Columbine and San Diego and everything else, add them all up, multiply by 100,000, and you still don't have as many as Jesus and Daniel could have killed. Okay? Nelson and Felipe, they did better than these two guys here. Through all of their depravity and all of their political power, they didn't manage to kill as many people as Nelson and Felipe could have killed. This one's my absolute favorite. And I'll spend a moment just to focus on this one. This Cretan killed 9 people. He spent his entire life in prison. He died in prison, and he was the personification of evil to an entire generation. Right? Everyone knows this, right? 9 people he killed, died in prison, personification of evil. My daughter was one of 9 children killed in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, by that one dealer the night she died. That dealer, in one night, killed as many people as this guy killed in his life. And he's still free. How many has he killed since January 11th last year? Probably 90 more, 100 more, who knows? This guy killed 3 people who die in solitary confinement. If you took every serial killer that ever existed in the United States and you let them live perpetually and keep killing at the rates they did when they were alive, they would take 500,000 years to kill as many people as these 4 people could have killed. I'll tell one other quick story about what it dwarfs. I'm watching CNN and NBC, Dateline, and they have this big story about the college fraternity hazing crisis. Crisis, you gotta watch this. Your kids in college are gonna die, they're gonna die, they're gonna die, you better watch the show. So I'm watching this, and I'm watching this terrible problem of college hazing and all the kids dying. I said, you know what, how bad a problem is this? So I go looking it up. And this is on the 2 big news magazines. I tried to get on both of these, by the way. I talked to Manu Raju and a few other people at CNN and blew me off. I talked to a bunch of people at NBC, they blew me off. All right? I've done interviews with ABC News, Washington Post, nobody publishes anything. But this they do. Big, prime-time stories. College hazing crisis. Okay, what is the college hazing crisis? I looked it up. How many people do you think died in the college hazing crisis last year in America? 4. How many have died in the history of the United States? All colleges combined, all fraternities, history of the United States, 137. That is one day of 365 every single year in the opioid crisis. In the history of fraternities. And yet that demands 2 primetime stories. So I started thinking about this. Why did anybody even want to listen to this? Why did Washington Post? I spent 3 hours with their investigative reporting team. Still didn't get published. I spent 2 hours on camera with ABC News. Nobody puts it on. It's supposed to be on Nightline. All that. Huh? Why? Think about these 2 ladies here. Right? Doris Aiken, Kenny Whitener. They took care of drunk driving, right? This is RID. Removed intoxicated drivers and med moms, right? 1980, when they first started their work, Doris Aiken just passed away last year, God rest her soul. 1977-80 time frame, right? When Carrie Lightner, Candy's daughter, was killed, we had no per se law in any state, right? So you had to prove the danger of the person. Proving they were drunk wasn't enough, right? It wasn't a per se law. Most rights were written somewhere between 0.1 and 0.15 blood alcohol. We had 25,000 deaths a year occurring from drug driving. And more importantly, it was very consistent since the 60s. It's 25, 26, 23, 25 kind of number. And here's a very big statistic. Drunk driving was involved in was the cause of 66% of fatal deaths among people 16 to 20. If you were 16 to 20 killed in a car crash, 2 out of 3 were because of alcohol. Look what happened by 2017. By then, we had per se laws in all 50 states. Bill Clinton passed the federal level of 0.08. It is now law in all 50 states. We have 10,000 deaths per year. Right? We've been lower than 11 since 2008. So really, between 1980 and 2008, these 2 women virtually by themselves were responsible for the reduction from 25,000 to 10,000 just until 2008. And look at this number. They got drunk driving deaths of 16 to 20-year-olds. It was 2/3 of their accidents. Now it's only 28%. Right? But it's worth noting that in its worst year ever, the drunk driving problem was 1/3 of the drug problem in this country. 1/3 in terms of death rates. And in fact, it was only 1/2 of just the opioid problem in its worst. Okay? So why were they so successful? Why can't I even get money right into my phone? Right? Why? Well, back to my third pillar again. Trying to change culture, not just law, but culture. I believe it was this. What Candy Lightner was trying to do was to get this driving while intoxicated, DWI. It was under this umbrella of laws called motor vehicle laws, which included parking tickets. And honestly, I was one of her enemies in 1980 when she started. I used to say, come on, people are having a few beers, whatever. But then she pounded us with messages about how many people were dying and the carnage that was happening. I graduated high school in 1980. Drunk driving was not a big deal for most people. But then she hit us with these messages, until finally she converted me pretty quickly. Because where was she really trying to go? She was trying to say, hey, this DWI isn't parking tickets and mechanical defects and expired registration. This is like rape, robbery, aggravated homicide, and murder. And she got us to think that way. She got that DWI moved from motor vehicle laws to felony crime. And that's what most people think of today. If you go back 30 years and heard somebody was busted by a cop and they got a ticket for DWI, you'd be like, oh, that's a rough ticket. You know, that's even worse than a speeding ticket. It cost you $2. Today, you'd say, oh my gosh, they're going to jail. Oh, their life is over. Right? Well, that's the right way. That's the way we should be looking at it. It's pretty bad stuff. So what are we trying to do in the Actors Foundation? Something similar. I've got this crazy synthetic opioid where people can carry in the trunk of their car enough to kill 20 million people, and it's under the same laws as marijuana. This is insane. This is the worst chemical warfare agent we've ever seen, and it's sitting under drug laws. This is like anthrax, sarin, dirty bombs. Yeah, worse than any of those. Worse than any of those. Why? Anybody can get it. You got to be a country to make this stuff. You got to be some guy in his underwear, in the dark web, ordering like Amazon. So we need to do that. We need to move this the way she moved that. Then I think we can get somewhere. We've got to get the hearts and minds turned over. This is what my advocacy is all about, and this is what my wife and I are trying to convince our country. Because Candy Lightner looked at her dead child and said, you got to be kidding. Your booze cruise is worth my dead child? No way. My dead child is over here because somebody took something the quality of anthrax and killed her. My daughter, yes, my daughter mental illness. Yes, my daughter took illicit drugs. Yes, she was trying to self-medicate. I can show you my Christmas Day text with her last year when she said, I'm on the path, this is it, we found the right therapy, I'm going to be okay. One last time she turned to Old Reliable because some crazy psychiatrist decided to change her meds and now she's dead. That's not right. So, we got to put something to tip these scales back. Right? We got to put something of my three pillars to try to tip those scales back. Put something on the other side. One small bean on the other side. Come on, give me something. It's all like this. Meg was a non-addicted opioid user. She was self-medicating her intense symptoms. She was at extremely high risk because of her low resistance and her lack of experience. That meant she's a forgotten. Why? Because in our zeal to help addicts, we've forgotten the people who aren't addicts. And those people who aren't addicts, maybe they weren't such a big problem in the heroin days, pre-2013, but now they are. The mentally ill, the thrill seekers, experimentals, those with high-risk attraction profiles, people with poor impulse control, excessive partiers, okay? Chronic pain sufferers, cut off from their meds, that's going to start happening, right? They're a much higher death rate than addicts because of their less experience and their little resistance. So here's something. Remember this curve here I showed you before? The single most important thing in my mind out of CDC? Here's a quote that goes along with it. The hockey stick curve of 2013 to 2015 is disproportionately made up of first, second, and third time users. That is a quote from the Chief of Emergency Medicine at University of Pennsylvania Medical Center. First, second, and third time users to include the horrid one and dones. We know one person. Okay? Outreach. The only silver lining in that hockey stick curve is that since they're not addicts, they might be more subject to outreach. We can do a campaign of messages. Unknown powders can kill. If you take that pill, you'll die. Is that okay with you? Right? While it's ineffective with hardened addicts, regular kids who aren't addicts might be more open to these messages. It worked for me. who worked for me with Candy Lightner. She converted me. Ad council campaigns like we used to do against the drugs. We must get the word out about deadly fentanyl. Most people are still woefully uninformed as to the potency of this stuff and how it can get you in just one use. College campuses have become a ground zero for fentanyl death. Think about it. What has college become in America? It's not an educational institution. And I don't say this judgmentally, I don't. College has gone from being an educational experience to being a college experience, which is being an adult in all the ways of partying and freedom with your parents paying the whole bill. That's what college is to 90% of kids in America. And I don't judge it. Maybe that's good. Maybe that little time of freedom without all the responsibility is a good thing. Maybe it's good for development. I'm not judging that. I'm not arguing if it's good or bad. But I'm telling you, when you take kids with money in their hands and too much time who are in a party lifestyle and you put fentanyl out there, you have created the perfect environment for massive death. And as fentanyl expands, it's going to get worse. As it starts right now, it's an oxy-30s, I guess, is the big pill. It's going to start becoming in Xanax. We know a kid who died from Xanax. That was actually fentanyl, right? There's two phrases. My nephew, the one who's the counselor in the clinic, he was at Syracuse University. Very good school. Kids who go there tend to be high achievers. He went there, he did very well, he graduated. When I was first starting in my nephew said to me, Uncle Mike, I got to tell you two things about college in America. And again, this is Syracuse, good school. He said, when kids come to college, I was amazed at the level of kid who goes crazy partying. D1 athletes, Syracuse is Division I NCAA team. D1 athletes, drama students, scholarship students, top 4.0 GPA academic students, go bananas, party, anything, take anything, drink anything, poison themselves drunk, go crazy. Number one. Number two, he said, and when they're given that pill or that powder, and he said the word 3 times to make the emphasis, so I'll say it 3 times to you. He said, no, people my age will never, no one will ever ask what it is. We know the kid in California never took any drugs in his life. He was stressed out about an exam, took a Xanax that he thought was a prescription Xanax. Somebody gave him a quarter bar, nothing. He's still taking Xanax all the time. It was fentanyl. The kid died. 2 kids who liked to party. My son's best friend from high school, a friend of his best friend from high school was at Marist College. That best friend's roommate and that roommate's friend partying one night, took a couple Xanax. It wasn't Xanax, it was fentanyl. Both kids dead. Nice kids from the suburbs of New York. Good kids. Not crazy kids. Good kids, not drug addicts. What's in that jungle juice? My son, I'm just telling you my own stories. My son, his girlfriend was at the University of Albany. 3 years ago this happened. They call jungle juice in the dorms. They mix up a whole bunch of booze and it makes a punch. Okay? Not the smartest thing in the world to do, but what the heck? Some wise guy decided he would throw 3 Xanax bars into that punch hole. My son's girlfriend woke up 14 hours later in her dorm room and had no idea what happened. Thanks be to God, she wasn't raped, she wasn't attacked, she just passed out. Okay, fine. But what if the jungle juice guy had gotten the same Xanax as the kids had at Marist? That would have killed 60 kids that night. This is how dangerous this stuff is. And yet we treat it under the same laws to deal with pot. Right? So what's going to happen? The fentanyl will follow the road of fly panel displays, no question. We haven't reached the 2007 moment yet. Once we do, heroin will be gone. And it'll be all fentanyl. Right? All the benefits of fentanyl will be released. The explosion of manufacturing, its COGS, cost of goods sold, will drop below what heroin could never match. Heroin disappears. Heroin addicts will die because they take fentanyl. Pill poppers will die because they take fentanyl. And people addicted to nothing will die. Everybody will just die. Right? Conclusions. The introduction of fentanyl changes the paradigm. A business decision to move to fentanyl is inevitable and cataclysmic. Inevitable and cataclysmic. We will move to fentanyl. Okay? This implies death numbers unprecedented in history. The deployment of our 3 pillars is a chance to slow the process. I'm not trying to fix the problem. I can't fix any problem. All I'm saying is the 2007 moment, let's make it not 2019. Let's make it 2027 and give ourselves some time to help these kids and to get these people to stop doing this. Slowing the process buys time for the other solutions to work. We must reach people, young and old, with one simple message. Fentanyl changes everything. Thank you. I think Dennis said we were going to take a 10-minute break or so and then come back. I was going to do a talk on the technology that you have available at the street. It'll be shorter than this one, and it'll be interesting, some good facts. Thank you very much.